Welcome everyone. This is Desi Vijay. I'm a North South National Team member and I'm a coordinator for webinars. After passing for summer and nationals, we are starting our fall winter season webinars today. Glad to see you all here with us. Hope you're all doing great. Today we are bringing in an important topic about helping our teens and parents setting rules and boundaries in a democratic, amicable fashion. This is a part of the topic which is near and dear to our heart, that's bridging the generation gap. You can watch all our previous recordings in our North South YouTube channel. We are really pleased to have an expert in this field to talk to you about and share her professional experience. She's also an active participant in BGG team, and she is also a parent of our North South family. I'm really glad that we are able to bring this in today. Welcome to yet another exciting webinar. Before we go, let me go with the ground rules for this webinar. Number one, we are recording as we speak this session. So once we are done with the session by tomorrow, probably we will send you a link to this recorded presentation, so you can go through that all over again and I'll share with your family. If you have questions, if you want any of the previous ones, you please subscribe to North South YouTube channel and you can watch them there too. If you have any questions you want to ask the panel, please type them out in the questions tab. When the speaker is done and we start the question and answer sessions, I will start posing the questions to the presenter and she will answer your questions to all of you. We will try to go on the order we receive them. So please don't keep on repeating the same questions over and over again, because that makes it more cumbersome for us to wade through all the questions. And we will try to answer all your questions before the session ends, but still we want to limit this session to 90 minutes. So if we are not able to answer all the questions you asked, or the questions you asked, maybe some other questions, similar question has been asked and answered, or we are running out of time. Even in any case, if your question is not answered, please let us know at webinars@northsouth.org, and then we will try to contact the speaker and get the answers for you. We are also having a couple of poll questions here today. Please ask them as quickly as possible. This is mainly to gauge the audience's participation in this session who are all present here. And finally, before you leave, take a moment to fill in the feedback questions. This has helped us in the past to adjust the session, as well as it has helped the presenter to know how he or she did that, and then we would like to use that as an avenue to improve our performances. Thank you for your help and support. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for the successful webinar series thus far. We started to engage you during the COVID lockdown time, just to keep you busy, and but it has really grown to a real big feature of North South services to the parents and students alike, due to your great support. Thank you for the encouragement and support, and we are emboldened and go and look for new topics and discussions in the future. So we'd like you to make more participation in this effort, and then let us know what you want to hear. Let us know whom you think could be a good presenter. Let us know whom who are all ready to take part in this kind of webinar series, like a discussion. Thank you, and let's go to our scheduled session right now. Today's topic is setting boundaries and rules for teens. It's always the most important topic every one of us go through. We have a very accomplished professional amongst us today to talk to us and share our knowledge and experience with us. It gives me a great pleasure to invite you for this excellent session. And as all of you know, she is no stranger to us. She has provided several or participated in several webinars earlier. Dr. Jain is a doctorate in leadership and change from Walden University, USA, with a focus on behavioral characteristics of Gen Z and millennials. She also has a master's degree in knowledge management from Kent University in Ohio and master's degree from philosophy from Walden University, Minneapolis. She's also a yoga and meditation instructor, uses self-reflection techniques to bridge the communication. As you know, she is a certified youth behavior change expert and study behavioral patterns. She enables people to identify the various components of the control which hinder the child's growth and mindset and limit the potential. So we are really glad to have you here, and we welcome Dr. Jain. But Dr. Jain, let me share the poll results in case you are not able to see it, right? So of the poll, we are overwhelmingly everybody is a parent and adult today. And about 9% of them are high schoolers. So you have a perfect audience you could ask for. And also on the topics we know they are more interested to listen to is boundaries, obviously. That's what we are here for. And then communication, and then the confidence comes to the third one. So you can use your talents to address all these issues. And then here you go, Dr. Jain.
Thank you, Desi, and thank you everybody for being here. Very, very grateful for taking out the time on your Sunday to come and attend this webinar. And as we can see from the polls, 41% is focused on boundaries, and I can totally understand with teenagers, it's really, really hard. And today, let's talk about it. Let's see some practical strategies on how we can maintain these boundaries and while maintaining respect and increasing communication. So with that, let me take a minute to briefly introduce myself. I am Dr. Unnatti Jain. I'm a certified parent-teen coach, and I study behavioral patterns of teenagers. My expertise lies in helping parents actively engage with their children. So 29% of you indicated that you struggle with communication with your children. So that's one of my expertise. I also work on improving their personal and social skills, creating an opportunity for teens to develop self-awareness, and I do that by inculcating meditation and yoga techniques while I coach. So you can talk. I work with them to identify their strengths, emotional challenges, set goals, time management, stress management, just to name a few. All in all, I work with teenagers in about 52 different concepts, encouraging them to step into the maximum potential by identifying their strengths. So that's a little bit about me. We are an organization called Gen Z and You. We're located in Fairfax, Virginia. And me being an Indian, I'm trying to give back to my country. I'm trying to give back to my fellow Indians. And I use this stage to inculcate Indian values through a change in perspective, both for parents as well as for children. So who do we work with? We work with tweens, teens, and parents. And as we can tell, because we are settled in a country with which has diverse people, which has diverse perspectives, when your children go out, they have a completely different perspective to the world, whereas when they come home, they have a completely different perspective. We want to maintain our cultural values, but we also want to help them go and stand outside in their power with the confidence that they're able to engage with all of the other nations and diverse people. And we strongly believe, my tagline is, we believe behind every action there is an emotion. So while we know that teenagers run on hormones, if they're doing something, if there is something particularly that's standing out with your teenager, that could be they're not opening their rooms, they're just staying inside, they're constantly on social media, they are hiding under a blanket, they refuse to get up, they're sleeping excessively, they're eating excessively, or if any of these things stand out for you, it's time to get some help. We can't attribute everything to hormones. Hormones spike it up, but there is an innate issue over there. So just keep that at the back of your mind. So in today's webinar, we're going to talk about setting boundaries and rules for teens, which is why we have so many of you here. It's a very, very important topic. When I started, I asked Desi, how many people do we have registered? And he said 479 people. So that's a lot of people who registered for the webinar. I'm hoping more people show up. So as we all know, parenting teens comes with unique challenges, and boundaries is your answer. Understanding how to set boundaries and rules can not only improve your relationship, but also give your child a sense of safety. So we need to set boundaries, but we need to remember very categorically that the boundaries need to keep changing and shifting, and we will talk about it as we go on. So let's first break down, why do we need to set boundaries? What do boundaries do? Teenagers, as they become tweens from 12 to 18 years of age, their mind, as you probably have heard, their mind fully develops at 25. But between 11, let's say 10 and a half, 11, right up till 19, 20, their minds are all over the place, and their hormones are their primary driving factor. So it's very important as parents to take that. I'm sorry, this is troubling me. Give me 1 second. Yes, to take that leash in your hands and say, I am going to set these boundaries to nurture your child's emotional development, because they're looking for structure at this point in time, and they're not able to give themselves structure. They just cannot do it. So they rely on you to give them structure. Are they going to push back? Absolutely, they're going to push back. There is no question about it. But at this point in time, a parent needs to be stronger than a child. And that needs to be done without aggression, without anger, but with a lot of respect and a lot of consistency.
Quick question, Dr. Jain. You're not making any presentation, right? You're not seeing anything. You're not seeing anything.
Oh, I have my presentation going. I don't know how. Am I supposed to do something?
Yeah, you're a presenter, right?
Yeah. Show. Oh, maybe now.
So, yeah,
I don't know why it stopped showing.
Go to sharing on the top.
It should show you now. It says show.
Now I'm seeing. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm sorry, it was going on. I thought it was going on. Thank you, Desi. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Back to setting boundaries and rules for teams. So first, it nurtures healthy development in your child, helping them grow socially, emotionally, and psychologically. It also creates a sense of safety. They know that they need to move in this box. You've created a box for them, and they know that they need to move in this box. And if they step out of the box, you will be there to save them. You will be there to help them. So it provides them that structure, that sense of security. It also teaches them responsibility and accountability to make informed choices. So if they know that if they cross the boundary, there will be a consequence attached to it. And you need to be very specific in your consequence, because that is what is teaching them accountability, and you need to stick to that consequence that you're beginning. So that is what it does. Now, why do we need to set boundaries? So firstly, we'll discuss accountability. Boundaries set clear expectations so that they can take ownership for their actions. So during the teenage years, they're shaping their identities, their values. They're trying to push their boundaries not only with you, they're trying to push their boundaries with the outside people, with their friends, with their relatives, with everybody. So what it does to them is, when you set boundaries, it gives them absolutely clear expectations. You're not allowed to be out beyond 10 o'clock. That's it. It stops right here. So they know they will try and push it. Can I be there by 10:15? Can I be there by 10:30? They will push it, but they know that if they're not back by 10 o'clock, there will be a consequence attached to it. And maybe that consequence is they will not be allowed to go out for a party. Or if they don't finish their homework, they will not be able to go and see their friends. But if you're giving them a timeline. So It creates a sense of accountability. They start holding themselves accountable for their actions, which helps them in later years. So that's the first thing that happens. It also helps them understand the importance of respecting others' limits and feelings. If you don't set boundaries, they don't know as they grow up how to respect people's boundaries. So if a parent turns around and says to a child, to a teenager raises their voice, the parent sets a boundary that I will not have you raise your voice. Please go into your room, let your emotion pass, and then you come back and talk to me. You've just set a boundary. The teenager now knows that you will not take disrespect. Your boundary is, if the voice decibel level goes up, you will either turn away or you will ask them to go to their room. So the next time around, as you keep that boundary with them, they will grow to respect not only your boundary, but other people's boundaries. And that will prevent them from not only taking abuse, but also giving abuse. So they will learn how not to raise their voice, manage their emotions, and respect people as they grow up. Forming autonomy. Establishing and respecting boundaries will help them create healthy relationships and independent choices. They learn when they have boundaries, they know that they're supposed to act and respond in a particular boundary. So their decision-making skills get enhanced. They learn to identify the potential risks. So we just identified that if they know that if I raise my voice, the parent is either going to send them to your room, or there is another consequence, and that consequence may be that they're not allowed to go out with their friends. So what they learn is they learn how to make decisions based on reactions or based on boundaries set by adults as they grow up. So very, very essential to set boundaries and stick to those boundaries. Moving on. So what are the benefits? Structure, predictability, expectations. They know how to manage their time. I want you to unload the dishwasher at 5 o'clock in the evening. They know whatever they're doing at 5 o'clock in the evening, the parent expects the dishwasher to be unloaded. I want you to get up and make your bed. This is a non-negotiable. It's a boundary. You're not coming out of your room until your bed is made. Clear, specific rules. Give them predictability, understand expectations, and reduce conflict. The back and forth that you see when you have teenagers in the house, the back and forth conflict reduces, the misunderstandings reduce. Your teens, their minds don't have any clear structure. Their minds are battling not only hormones, relationships, academics, self-esteem, confidence, personal hygiene, body image. They're battling multiple things. So the more predictable, the more clear, the more specific you are, the higher the chance that you will get a positive response. And we will continue to talk about what all do we need to do, and you can turn around and I'm sure there'll be a question where you'll say, okay, we've defined the clear rules, but they don't follow it. And we will continue to talk about that. Their confidence grows if they know what they're dealing with, if they know who they're dealing with, if they know what their boundary is. You'll be surprised how many teens discuss their parents and discuss their boundaries with friends. You, as a parent, are one of the hottest topics with teens. And that's the reason they come back and push boundaries with you. And you may have heard this. very often said, why don't you allow me to do this? My friend's parent allows me to do this. And my answer as my son was growing up was always, I'm not their parent. You're my child, so I decide your boundary. But when they know and they have clear, specific rules and they predict and they understand and they have clear expectations and consequences, that's when they know that they cannot cross that boundary. So all in all, a parent needs to be calm and composed and stronger than a teenager. How do we do that? Communication. And that's a completely separate topic. Communication is one of your tools which you can use for effective boundaries. But how do we create that communication? That is the biggest challenge. I have a TED Talk, which you may want to listen to. It's on YouTube. It's also on my website, Gen Z and www.genZNU. It's how to move from control to connection. I strongly suggest that everybody, when you get a chance, if you get a chance, please kindly hear that talk. It'll really help you in communicating. Open communication is the foundation of setting boundaries. Respect. Listening more than talking. As parents, we're so quick to solve our child's problems and give them advice that we forget that the child is growing. The child is building an identity. The child needs to talk. While we need to take our children seriously, we need to listen to what they're saying as they experience life and develop that mutual respect. When we have that mutual respect, when the child knows that my views will be respected, I'm allowed to have a voice. I can speak. I don't have to just listen. I'm allowed to have a viewpoint. That develops open communication. And of course, it's a very in-depth topic, but this is just I'm just giving you the top layer. And that's when we can adjust the boundaries through dialogue. As teens grow up, as you learn more about them, as you create a non-judgmental atmosphere, as they know that they're allowed to express themselves, they're allowed to have an opinion, they're allowed to have a conversation around those boundaries because they're maturing, they're learning, they're growing. They're going outside and learning from their friends, from their peers, from their school, from their teachers. They're coming back and they're saying, why? Why do you want to give me that boundary? And it's only fair that we as parents can tell them why. So always remember, when setting a boundary, if you were to provide a why to the boundary, there is a 99.9% chance that the teenager will follow the boundary because you gave them a why. Our famous saying, because I said so, doesn't work anymore. And that's when you say, because I said so, because I'm a parent, that's when you get defiance. So open communication, mutual respect, and adjusting the boundaries through dialogue, through talking, through listening more, which in turn will build trust. As you build trust, your child will listen to you more. As you build respect, your child will be willing to listen to your boundaries. As you explain the why, your child will be more willing to adjust to your boundaries. Age appropriate, very essential. This, you can see my screen still, right?
Yeah, we can see it.
Thank you. Age appropriate boundaries. Let's discuss this with keeping you in mind. As a parent, you're not what you were yesterday. You're not what you were 2 hours ago. You're not what you were 10 years ago, 5 years ago. You're evolving. So is your child. So does your parenting style need to evolve. The boundary you set at 12 will not work at 12 and a half, will not work at 13. What you set at 13 will not work at 15, so on and so forth. So the boundaries need to be adjusted as your child grows older. What worked yesterday is not going to work today. When you set age-appropriate boundaries, you are respecting the fact that your child is growing up. And when you respect to appreciate that your child is growing up, your child begins to respect your boundaries. Curfew. As your child grows older, your child is going to be wanting to go out. The curfew times need to change. The technology times need to change. If they're using social media, or if they're keeping the phone next to them or in your room or in the room next to them at age 15, they may not want to do it at 16. They may want to do it later at 16. At 17, they may not want to do it at all. So your boundaries need to adjust according to age. Now, how do we do that? Totally on collaboration, negotiations. If you give them the responsibility of setting the rule with you, it'll give them ownership of their actions. Because as they grow older, they need more personal space. When you have a mutual understanding around the boundaries, it reduces misunderstandings. And you come to a stage where it's like any other relationship. You're negotiating, you're respecting, you're talking to see what's acceptable to you, what's acceptable to them. Of course, you're the parent. You'll always have 90% of the share, but they need to have 10% because it'll become easier for you to keep that boundary, or for them to follow that boundary if you give them that 10% real estate. It also shows that you respect them, you're listening to them, you value their opinions, you're just not telling them what to do. Because as you and I both know, as we all know, you can't tell teenagers what to do. The minute you're telling teenagers what to do, there is a problem. They're not going to listen to you. And that's what a generational gap is all about. But you're your child's security blanket. That generational gap can be reduced. Now, we all know as parents, we need to establish some non-negotiables. We can turn around and say, it's very easy to say that we need to negotiate on boundaries, but how do we keep our child safe? Of course, there are negotiables and there are non-negotiables. The non-negotiables are obviously around their safety, physically and emotionally. It's upholding the family values, what your family values and expectations are, what resonates with your family values and what doesn't resonate with them. Boundaries also protect relationships by ensuring that behavior is maintained. We often say that our teenagers don't respect us. Well, if you have boundaries and we consistently follow those boundaries, and those could be on our family values, or it could be on anything that is of high importance to you as a parent, then those need to be followed. Now, I often hear parents say, I lay down the boundaries. They still do the same thing. They're not going to remember it. They don't have the capacity. They don't have the capacity to sit still, remember everything that you've told them. So you have to keep it short, simple, and age appropriate. Often, we expect a 10-year-old or 11-year-old or a 13-year-old to understand the dialogue or the monologue of a 40-year-old. It's not possible. You have to talk to them in their language. You have to come down to their level. Once you listen more, you'll be able to identify what is their language. You have to repeat yourself. You will be needed to repeat yourself multiple times. And your challenge is to stay calm while repeating yourself, because the minute you lose your calm, your child is not going to listen to you. And I always tell this parent, don't worry that your children are not listening to you. Worry that your child is watching you. If you're going to be sitting in the car and looking at the phone while driving, guess what? If your teenager is going to drive, that's exactly what they're going to do. If you're going to be sitting in front of the TV for 4 hours a day or sitting on your phone for 4 hours a day and telling your child not to do it, they're not going to listen to you. And once they reach 17 and a half, they're going to turn around and tell you, well, you do it, so why can't I? So just to keep these things in mind, boundaries are very important. Boundaries can be created. You can't expect them to remember it. So make sure you repeat them. And when you repeat them, there has to be no anger, but very firm boundaries. Consistency. When we're building boundaries, we often, as parents, melt and say, oh, let me give it to her or him today. Guess what it tells the child? I know when to get to my parent. I know she's vulnerable at night. You know what? If I ask her for the same thing at night, when she's finished everything and she's not stressed, she'll probably say yes. Or he'll probably say yes. And then when the next morning happens and you're back to the same boundary, and you see that the boundary is broken or the boundary has been moved, you wonder, oh, well, your child manipulated you last night when you were vulnerable. So we need to make sure that even when we are vulnerable, we still maintain the boundary, or the child. And it's not that my child is manipulative or their child is manipulative or your child is manipulative. Children are manipulative. Teens are in survival mode. They will do anything to get what they want. And nobody knows your child better than you do. So consistency builds trust. The more consistent you are with your values, with your boundaries, the surer you can be that your child is going to follow those boundaries. Inconsistency also leads to confusion about expectations. Today, my parent wants this. Tomorrow, my parents wants this. I don't know how to deal with it. So again, we go back to predictability. Inconsistency also weakens your authority. When you don't follow through, your child doesn't take you seriously. It undermines the credibility of your rules. So if you're setting your rules and you want to maintain your parental authority, then you need to stick to the rules. Now, they will also push you more when they sense inconsistency, because they know that you've broken a boundary once. It's a possibility you can bring it again, break it again. So I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep asking for the same thing over and over and over again, because if she could break it, or if he could break it last night, or for the party which happened 2 days ago, why can't she change the boundary for the upcoming party? Well, guess what? You negotiated against yourself. So consistency is extremely important. The biggest concern, digital boundaries. Very, very important. We all know that this generation has come with, they have been born with a phone in their hands. They haven't seen a day without the phone. We're talking about Gen Zs. And they've seen multiple movements, Black Lives Matter, they've seen the pandemic, they've seen wars, they've seen multiple things. So acknowledge that they can use social media to their advantage, and they are very good at it. And the one best way of maintaining digital boundaries is mentoring good behavior. And I wish we'd done a poll on this where we'd asked, how many hours in a day do you as a parent use the phone? So we need to have guidelines along with your child on the impact of technology on them, and rules to maintain their mental health. But these rules should be created with them, not for them. Another way we can manage this is by designating certain areas and times as tech-free zones. You're not allowed to have use the phone in the car. You're not allowed to use the phone while having a conversation. You're not allowed to use the phone while you're on the dinner table. You're not allowed to use the phone between 2 to 4 o'clock. We're all going to put our phones somewhere common, but you have to follow it with them. So very important to maintain that balance and consistency with the digital boundaries. Now, as they grow up, very important to maintain a balance between independence and boundaries. At 13, they're going to listen to you. At 14, so let me give you certain milestones. Between 13 to 15 is when your child is going to be listening to you, is going to be fighting with you, is going to try and get your attention. Because at this point in time, the most important thing in their life is their parents. And they want to feel that sense of safety. And they want to interact more with you. So they're going to fight more for your attention. And that's why teens between 13 to 15 have such big meltdowns. One of the major reasons is their body is changing. They're hitting puberty. Multiple things are happening to their body, and they're not able to control that. So their only safe space is the parental space. So what they do is they try and be closer to you. And that's why the multiple fights between 13 and 15. Between 15 to 17 is when the impact from the outside world increases. This is when they start listening to more to peers, friends, and everybody outside, and parents become completely alien. So they start pushing you away as they start driving, as they start going into more into deeper relationships. They start finding their friends, they start finding like-minded people. So balancing independence and boundaries becomes extremely essential at this point in time as they grow older, especially after 15. And you'll also see as your child turns 16, the changes are extremely, extremely rapid. You will see a change every week in your child. That's how quickly they're growing. So how do we balance independence and boundaries? Open dialogue, open conversations, open conversation and expectations about your boundaries, about how you need to adjust it, because they're becoming more and more independent. And go slow. Build trust. One of the biggest things in a child's life is that they want to please their parents, believe it or not, even in a teenager's life. We just need to build that trust. And that trust can be built gradually, by consistency, and by creating boundaries. Always allow them to have that independence, but at the same time have that safety net and that support system that even if they commit a mistake, which they will, and I think it's very important for us as parents to recognize that they're growing. If they don't commit mistakes, they will not learn. But of course, those mistakes need to be committed within your value systems, within your safety nets. And sometimes they will go outside that safety net and outside that value system too, but they should have the trust that if they do that, they can come back to you and you will listen to them. Of course, there will be consequences, but you will not shut them out. They're safe. So as they grow older, remember, you need to adjust the boundaries. Consequences should be directly associated with the action, with the rule broken, because that way they can connect their actions and outcomes. You broke the rule for digital media, for using your phone. You're not going to be able to communicate with your friends for X number of hours or X number of days. You went out to a party. You overstepped your boundary. You were supposed to come back at 10 o'clock. You came back at 10:30. So next time around, this is going to be the consequence. So make sure your actions, your consequences are directly related to action. And they're not all over the place, because sometimes what happens is when you're angry with the child, you'll say, okay, you've broken the boundary of using the phone. I'm going to take everything away from you. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do this. So when that happens, there's more belligerence. There's more defiance. So keep the consequence directly related to the action. And keep the consistency again. We can't go too harsh. When we go too harsh or we go too lenient, then there is a chance that there will be defiance. Or we will raise entitled children. When we are too lenient, we go towards permissive parenting, which raises ungrateful children. And that's a completely different topic, very close to my heart. And we can have a completely separate webinar about how to raise gratitude in children, because we are very quick to say that our children are very ungrateful. But how do we teach them gratitude? But I digress. We will have that conversation another time. Flexibility and adaptation. As we talked about it, just as teens grow and change, so do circumstances. They're going to be wanting to be out more. They want to hang out with their friends more. As they grow towards 17 and a half, they want to take the ownership of managing their digital media themselves, their technology themselves. So flexibility. When you're flexible with your boundaries, it acknowledges this evolution. Teaching resilience. Adapting to rules teaches them the importance of resilience and the ability to navigate different situations. They learn to work within the boundaries, and they learn to problem solve within the boundaries, because the world is not wide open to them. They will always have boundaries anywhere they go, whether that's in a work situation, that's in school, that's with friends, that's with teachers, that's with anybody. So when you teach them boundaries, it teaches them resilience. It teaches them how to work in a box with what they have been given. Ongoing conversations, an absolute must to assess the rules And once you open the conversation about boundaries with them, they'll be automatically willing to talk. They will not be in their rooms. I know one of the questions which has already come in is how do you get them out of their rooms? Make it about them. Make it about what rules about their friends, about not only about academics, about their friends, about what they need to change, about how we need to adjust boundaries so that they can thrive. When you make it about them and when you talk to them in their language, they'll be more willing to talk to you. Again, they're evolving. What worked yesterday is not going to work today. So keep reevaluating. Allow for trial and error. It's all right to allow teens to learn from their experiences. So let them step out of their comfort zone a little bit. But of course, with your knowledge, keeping them safe. But if they don't step out of their comfort zone, they're not going to learn. So if they want to try new things, let them try it. Maybe that piano class, or maybe that volleyball class, or the pickleball, maybe they want to try it. Only if they try it will they know whether they want it or not. So allow healthy experimentation. So here are some of the guiding principles. As you embark on this journey, here is what we've discussed. Communication is key. Balance freedom and responsibility. Mentoring behavior, extremely important. That's how you'll develop respect. Non-negotiable safety. Identify what boundaries are absolutely non-negotiable for you. And when you identify these boundaries, you lay out those rules. This is a vegetarian household. I do not want you bringing in meat in this house. Non-negotiable. This is against my value. Okay. So the child knows. So identify those non-negotiable boundaries. Consistency absolutely matters. If you're not consistent with your values or enforcing rules, you are not only damaging your relationship with your child, you're also confusing them. Empathy is very important. Your child is not out to get you. They didn't come in this world to make your life miserable during their teen years. They are more miserable than you are. They just don't show it. They can't show it because they don't know what's happening with them. So empathy is very, very important while discussing rules or while discussing boundaries or even otherwise, listening to their perspective and jointly creating those boundaries or jointly creating those rules will increase communication. Adaptability. Be adaptable. As their ages change, you need to adapt the boundaries according to their age and according to their needs. Responsibility. You're going to use consequences learning tools because it teaches them accountability. If you don't have any consequences, they're going to think they can do anything when they go out in the outside world. So very important for you to hold them accountable for their actions. Don't let it go. If you've set a chore of them clearing the table or laying the table, then you need to keep them accountable for that. Because that is what is going to teach them some very important skills as they grow up. Digital balance, mentor the behavior of digital balance. If a child is going to see you going to yoga, not using your phone 5 hours a day, not using your phone when you're driving, not using your phone when you're eating, making sure that you're only on the phone for an hour a day or 2 hours a day or how much ever, or not keeping it next to you at night, there's a chance that they will follow that behavior. Conversations. Conversations absolutely must. While setting boundaries as they're growing up, why is it that your children, our children, don't want to communicate with us? Because we're talking at them. The minute you listen more and you talk less, your child will be willing to talk to you. Now, it takes a while. If we're going to sit with the child for 5 minutes, it's not going to happen. So create that safe space. Create that space where it's okay to keep quiet for 30 minutes, but you'll see if there is silence for 30 minutes, maybe the 31st minute there is a bouncing conversation. But you have to create that space. It's not going to happen at your timeline. Every family's boundaries are unique. Identify what your boundaries are, but these are guiding principles for you to help navigate the teenage years. I have an upcoming workshop, which is on supporting teens through divorce and co-parenting challenges. If you know of any single parent out there who's struggling, or if you happen to be one, come join me on my workshop. It is going to be done with another coach. You'll have 2 instructors. It's a 4-hour workshop. Very interesting. We'll have live exercises. We will have a whole lot of conversations, and we will have some community building. Please put your preference of future webinars. I have some of the topics here. If there's anything else that resonates with you, please feel free to put it in the chat box. And if you'd like me to address anything else, I'm an author. I have a book called The Parent-Teen Journey, which is available on Amazon. It should help you with your teen raising. It's specifically been written with an immigrant child in mind. So hopefully it will help you. It's also available in all of Fairfax County libraries now. If you're a Fairfax, Virginia resident, you can also get it from a library. That's my website. That's my email. I'm very readily available. You can send me a text. You can WhatsApp me. I work globally across. So reach out to me should you have any issue, and let's connect. And I wish you all the best. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being there and listening to me. I do hope I have enriched you or helped you in some way to bridge that generational divide. Namaste.
Thank you, Dr. Jain. It was really wonderful and reminded me how parenting is so complicated this generation compared to the one previous. So it's a big task. They have to do it. We will get into the question and answer sessions. Please post your questions. But before that, like Dr. Jain was saying, we wanted to see what's important to you. I'm just going to put up a poll. Unfortunately, you can pick only one in here, but we have more choices in the feedback questions, so you can go back and check and post the question. But this one says, what's the most important topic you would like us to address in depth the next time? It's about the communication with your teenager, or independence versus rules, time management, responsibility, conflict resolutions, or creating independent teenagers. Like I said, unfortunately, I can only put 5 choices here, so but we have a little bit more choices. Or whatever you can think of, just let us know, and then we will try to address this with Dr. Jain or with anybody who is expert in that field. Thank you very much. I'm going to close this, and then Dr. Jain just get you. The answer is 34% of them are saying time management and 26% of communication, and remaining all spread up.
Do you still see my screen, Desi? I can even put up. I can even put up the previous slide.
I don't see. Yeah, are you able to see this result? Quick poll results? No.
Yes, I am. Can you give me the? I can even put. Yeah. If you give me the. Let me just.
Yeah. Now I can see you. Yeah. Put up your.
So I'm going to put up my. These are some additional topics. Please, if you'd like me to speak on any of these additional topics, you could always send an email to North South Webinars, and we can get something on there.
Yeah, we will be sending you this presentation along with the link for the recorded webinar tomorrow. And so you can either answer to us at the webinars@northsouth.org or to Dr. Jain directly. So let's go to some questions, Dr. Jain.
Yes, please.
Okay, the first one, it says, how can we make the teenagers to come out of their rooms? How can we make them understand the seriousness of their college applications, extracurricular activities?
It depends on their age. I think, again, like I said in my earlier in my presentation, if they're not coming out of the room, there is a chance that they feel they're not being heard. So one thing we can do is establish a boundary where you're not allowed to close your room from this time to this time. You're not allowed to be in your room from this time to this time. You're supposed to be in a common place. So establish a boundary, if depending on the age, of course. Establish a boundary of not being not having the room closed and being in a common area. You can also establish a boundary of them having family time at a particular time. So these are some of the ways that you can, again, it's age adjustable, but you can't use this boundary with a 17 and a half. You can probably use this with a boundary with a 13, 14, 15, but you can't use it anywhere after that. For a time after that, you need to have a conversation with them about why they're not coming out of the room and how is it that you can create that safe space so they can have more time with you. So express your vulnerability to your child of how you would like to have more time with them if they're anything above 15, and if it's anything above below 15, then I would suggest create a boundary.
Thank you. The next one is we have done things wrong in the past. How can we suddenly start changing the way we behave with them?
We all make mistakes. Don't be too hard on yourself. Parenting doesn't come with a manual, unfortunately. We all make mistakes as parents, but it's never too late to change. And slowly, but gradually, consistently, make those changes, and they'll see it. If you consistently keep making the changes, slowly, gradually, have more patience, have more empathy, you'll be able to get through to them, but they have to be consistent. And you can have an open conversation about the changes that you'd like to make, about the mistakes that you've committed. You can even go to therapy together. Very important to address the mistakes that you've made. And once you address the mistakes, there will be some healing time, but the two of you can heal together, or the three of you can heal together. So have the conversations. Don't put them under the carpet. Allow them to express their anger. Allow them to express their distaste. Once they've done that, so remember, when you're silent, when the child is silent, it means they're harboring, or anybody for that matter, they're harboring some kind of resentment, some kind of anger. When they're crying, it means they're hurting and they're trying to express that anger in the form of tears. Once the tears stop, they'll be able to communicate. As we all say, as we all know, there are various stages of grief. So have the conversation in the open, be vulnerable, speak about it, be empathetic, listen more than you speak, allow them to express your anger. Don't judge them while they're expressing their anger. Listen. The more you listen to their anger, the sooner they will come back. I hope that helps.
Thank you. The next one is from a student, actually. Hello, I'm a sophomore in a high school. I want your opinion, suggestion for the situation in my high school. I recently moved to a new school, and in one of my classes, I sit all alone because everyone in the class has tight friend groups. I tried to make friends in that class, but they basically excluded me. In addition, all the tables are filled, so I cannot just take the seat next to anyone else in the class. I feel embarrassed and lonely being the only person in the entire classroom alone and not talking to anyone. What should I do to change this?
What's his name, Daisy? Does he say his name?
What?
Did he say his name?
No, he didn't.
So, firstly, I understand. I hear you. I know how college is hard. I understand what you're feeling right now. High school is one of the toughest journeys that you'll take. But here's what I will say to you. People who are strong walk alone. Stand in your power. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You have very strong values. It's a question of acceptance. It'll take time. Continue to talk to people. Find like-minded people like you, but don't allow it to impact your self-esteem, because there's nothing wrong that you're doing. You're an extremely good kid. You're doing the best that you can. High school is hard. People are mean. Children are fighting their own journeys. Don't try and fit in. Stand tall with your values. You're doing the best that you can. Eventually, there will be acceptance. You're new. And when anybody or anything new comes in anybody's life, it takes time. But identify those people who resonate with you and then make those choices on who you want to talk to. But don't try and fit in. Don't change yourself to fit in. Wait. I hope that helps. But I understand what you're feeling.
Thank you. Thank you. It was really nice. Moving on, the next one, isn't that age group different for boys versus girls, like 13 to 15 or 15 to 17? I feel the girls grow up faster.
A little bit. A little bit. Girls grow up faster a little bit, but the milestones stay the same. They grow up a little bit, but they don't, as far as parental involvement is concerned, no. 15 to 17, as far as their external impact is concerned from outside forces, no. So while they grow and mature faster, the basic milestones remain the same.
Thank you. And let me see. Oh, this is an important question. What if the parents differ in defining the boundaries?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What if the parents differ in defining the boundaries?
Then you need to come to a common ground. If you don't come to a common ground, your child will not follow the boundaries and your child will be impacted. They'll be more confused and they will become manipulative and they will go in survival mode. So you need to come to a common ground between your better half, your partner, your husband, wife, whoever that may be, because otherwise the child is definitely going to be impacted.
Yeah.
So you may differ in your opinions, but when you come in front of the child with a boundary, the boundary needs to be consistent and same. So you can have different opinions outside of the child and have those discussions, but when you come in front of the child, you should stand as a strong force. So if you're not allowed to be back after 10 o'clock, that's a boundary that your father and mother both have set, or your both the partners have set, and that's not going to change. So you have to be a unified force in front of the child, but behind the curtains, feel free to have all the discussions possible, because if you don't, you're not only confusing the child, you're also building defiance in the child, where the child is going to go outside and find co-parenting other parental figures where they feel safe. Because if there is a difference of opinion at home, then there is a chance that the child is going to go outside to find a safer place where they can communicate.
Thank you. We need guidance on setting the boundaries on phone usage at night. Even after setting the time limit to put the phone away at 10 p.m., he still continues to use it after that.
What is the age of your child, if I may ask?
I don't have that information, probably, but
attach a consequence to it. If you can put the age of the child, I can guide you a little better. But otherwise, attach a consequence to using the phone after 10 o'clock.
She says 16.
16. Well, have a conversation. have a conversation, express what you're feeling, express how it's impacting them, and you need to probably adjust the boundary, because at 16 the child gets a little more independent, so they're less likely to listen to the boundaries. So if it's 10 o'clock, maybe at 16 you can't set a boundary of 10 o'clock, you need to increase it. So if you increase the boundary to about 11:30, there are chances that the child will listen to you. But the boundary needs to be adjusted. 16 at 10 o'clock, they won't follow it.
Thank you. The next one is unable to tolerate the dressing sense of teenage kids. At the same time, I understand that we are not in India anymore and the dressing is different here. How should we deal with that kind of situation?
I'm sorry, Desi, I didn't get this, and I'm unable to read the answers because the thing is too small. Read the questions, it's too small, but can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, the question is unable to tolerate the dressing sense of the teenagers. At the same time, I understand that we are not in India anymore and the dressing is different here. How should we deal with that kind of situation?
Setting a boundary, because it conflicts with your values. So identify what is acceptable to you and what is not, and set the boundary accordingly, because it's a non-negotiable boundary. So I don't know what that boundary is, but identify it, communicate it, give a why behind it, and then there is a chance that they will follow it.
Thank you.
So you need a little adjustment to your boundary, and there needs to be an amicable answer. And they need to come halfway, you need to come halfway, because you have certain values and you need your household to stand by those values. So then they need to come halfway and you need to go halfway.
Thank you. And I don't see any more, but I'm going to ask you a question of my own. For the parents with kids of different ages and youngsters, the teenagers, obviously the rules have to be different for different kids. So what do you recommend as a core thing what everybody should follow, and things which individualized depending on the age? Is there anything you can say?
I'm sorry, Desi, I don't understand your question. So tell me the age that you're referring to.
For household with the kids of different age groups, kids.
Yeah.
So obviously you said age-related, consequences or age-related rules, but are there any core rules which you have for everybody to follow? And there's some for age.
Correct. Just like I said, for age, let's say clothes, it's the boundaries that reflect your values. They should be the same for all three, for all the ages, if they speak to your values. And the boundaries that are outside of your values, then they need to speak to the age. So for instance, the phone usage. What is acceptable to what should go for a 14-year-old should not go for a 15, should not go for a 16, should not go for a 17. So that's a common boundary. But let's say the clothes, that's a value boundary, because this is not acceptable in my household, because that's what I stand by. So that's a common boundary between all three. So whatever speaks to your values, so it's very important for a parent to identify your non-negotiable boundaries. And then explain the why and the culture behind it. For instance, let's say we're Indians. We want our children when they go back to India, as to show respect, we want them to touch elders' feet. That's our value. That's our culture. And we'd like to inculcate that culture in our children. I'm just giving an example, and I'm not saying that it's consistent. This is consistent in every household, but I'm just giving an overall value. Now, that is a non-negotiable for me. And I'm going to explain the why behind that value to my child. I'm not going to say just jump at anybody's feet that comes your way just because they're elders, but I'm going to explain why that value is important. What do you get by following that value? And that's a non-negotiable for me. So that's, these are cultural values. I hope that answered your question, Desi.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was a general thing. And then the next one, that means, are there any parental control app on iPhone?
I don't know. I am not aware of it. I have never used a parental control app for my own child, because I needed to build trust with my child, and we go by on trust. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I don't know if there's a parental control app, but I'm sure there is. If you do a search, I'm sure you'll find one.
Yeah, they should be talking to the Apple. Regarding the phone control, one parent is asking, when he doesn't stick to the phone boundary, if I usually take away his phone, but I do need him to have the phone when he's at school so that I can reach him. So I end up giving it back to him. How do we handle that?
How old is he?
Well, didn't say anything. 14.
If I may ask, he's 14. And you said you take away his phone when he doesn't listen, right? Identify something else that is close to his heart. If that is, maybe that's his PlayStation. So identify something else other than his phone, which can be taken away as a consequence.
Okay, thanks. And I really don't have any more questions posted. Is there any final thoughts you have?
Yes, I do have a final thought. Here's what I will say to every parent listening to this. Behind every action, there is an emotion. Your teens are fighting bigger battles than you are. I'm not minimizing your pain at all. But what I'm saying is that they are not here to defy you. Those children are so confused and so anxious and so angry that you are not on that list yet, right now. You will come back on that list. This 12 to 18 is the most foundational years of a child's life. If we can give them empathy, listen to them, create conversations, build respect, communicate, I can assure you they will be back at you by 25, earlier if possible. So use this time to build those solid relationships by working on your own self, on your own parenting, on your own patience, your past baggage. Are you putting your expectations on your child? Are you fulfilling your past expectations through your child? You want him to do something because you weren't able to do it. Are you overcompensating the child because you weren't given something that is making the child ungrateful, or that's making the child entitled? So these are some things that we as parents need to think. And once we take our own inner journey and we identify our own limitations and we develop that empathy and that patience, I promise you, you'll have the most beautiful relationship with your child. My child is 19 now. He studies at James Madison. And he makes me proud every day. And I have, with God's grace, God is kind, I have a beautiful relationship with him. But those teen years were very hard. So take the time to take your inner journey. The more you work on yourself, the stronger your bond with your child will be. Thank you.
Couple more questions popped in after it talk. Is it okay for a couple more minutes?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. One is saying, I don't look at my kid's phone 12 and almost 17. But my 17-year-old doesn't want to share his password. He's a great kid. I don't force to see his messages because he doesn't want me to. Any thoughts on that? Is that normal
Yeah.
or anything else?
You shouldn't want his password. He should be allowed to have his privacy. So not a good idea. 17-year-old will not share the password. It's very normal. And he shouldn't. And you shouldn't even ask him. The more you respect his privacy, the more he'll come back and talk to you. So at 17, he's already almost in and out. While there'll always be children for us, they've developed that independence and they don't share passwords at 17. So that's a very normal thing.
And thank you. And then the next one is when we explain why we want them to do certain things, like keep the room clean, keep it organized, helps you to find your stuff, they say, I don't care. What do you say?
Very standard answer. You can turn around and say, I don't care. It's not about you caring. This house, I live in this house. We all live in this house. We all have responsibilities towards this house. And we're supposed to keep it clean. And we're supposed to keep it. That's the rule of the house. So again, we go back to boundary. You're not getting this until you clean your room. You've explained the why. Now they're still defying you. We need a boundary here. And we need a consistent boundary, and we need a strong boundary, we need a firm boundary, and we need to stick to that boundary. You're not getting out of your room, or you're not going to that party, or you're not going to that workshop, or you're not going to the library or to school unless and until you clean your room. Boundary.
Thank you. And for one more time, do you do individual coaching sessions?
I do. Please send me a text and we can have a 30-minute discovery call. I will try and understand how old your child is and what the issues are. Absolutely. I do. I'm based in, all of my coaching sessions are online. I work globally, so everything is online. And if you want to see me in person and you're in Fairfax, Virginia, I am absolutely here to see you too. So yes.
So the contact information is in your presentation, right?
Yes, the contact and information is in my presentation.
Okay. So which you will send it to me today, and then I will send it to them tomorrow.
Yes, I will send it to you today. You can also follow me on social media. I'm very active on social media, on Fairfax, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I go by @Dr.Unnatti Jain, and I can type it here. It's @Dr.Unnatti Jain. That's my social. My website is, I can't send to all. Okay. Did it go through, Desi?
I don't see.
I said send to all.
Oh,
So I
okay.
think there's a problem.
Probably, yeah, it should be in the chat. You should see it.
So let me just copy this whole thing and. I've just sent the whole thing on there. There you go. Sent to all. I just sent it to everybody. If you can see it in the chat, I sent the whole thing. I think somebody asked for my book. I can send the link to my book too. It's on Amazon.
Yeah, I think they found it, but yeah, you can send that link to them.
Yes, this is a book that's been written with keeping an immigrant parent in mind. So it should benefit everybody who's based across the world. And it's also available in the library.
And then in case any of you have any questions or want information about Dr. Unnatti Jain, please let us know at webinars@northsouth.org. We'll connect you both, and then you can take off from there. Thank you, Dr. Jain, for the wonderful session today. I know so many parents are so anxious, and like I said, it is really hard time to parent, definitely, with the advent of technology and all those things. I thank you for your time, your patience with answering and educating all of us on this topic. We want to continue talking about this in future too, on a periodic session. So please let us know what really you will be interested in listening to or learning or doing, so that we can bring you the appropriate stuff, whenever we can. And please let it be a two-way communication, and so let's take part on each other to figure out what we want to use this forum for. And thank you again, Dr. Jain.